Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. Tammy from Homesteading in the City with Tammy. Today's video, we are going to talk about how well my garden did with all the changes that I did to it this year. So if that is something that interests you, stick around. So before we get started, I just wanted to welcome everybody to my YouTube channel. Thank you for stopping by. Thank you for those of you who are new subscribers and have subscribed to my channel. I really appreciate it. It does benefit me by you subscribing to my channel.
Today's sponsor is Evil Uncle Grimace Woodworking. It is an online store where you can get handmade, one-of-a-kind wood products. Products are made using sustainably harvested domestic and exotic hardwoods. The company currently offers cutting boards and coasters with additional products to come. Check out the website to see what they have to offer.
Well, let's grab your beverage of choice and let's get into how my garden did for me this year. The first change that I made with my garden was the weed fabric. Being able to put the weed fabric down to control the amount of weeds, grass, and everything that I got in my garden was going to be beneficial for me. I just didn't have the amount of time to go out and weed, and it was taking me 3 or 4 hours a night to weed my garden to get all of the weeds out, because I couldn't get in there every night for a half hour to weed, and then they would just come on out of nowhere. It's like one day it was great, and then the next day I go in there and it's literally the weeds have taken over. So I was really struggling for the last couple of years to try to keep ahead of the number of weeds in my garden. And my vegetables didn't do so well because they were fighting for nutrients from the weeds. And I'm watering the garden, but the weeds were getting more of the water than the vegetables were, so I just wasn't getting a good crop. So the weed fabric was a real big challenge for me. I wanted to make sure it was going to work. I wanted to make sure that it wasn't going to kill my vegetables, and they were still going to get the nutrients that they needed, get the water that they needed through the weed fabric, and produce produce in what I needed them to produce. So they did really well. The weed fabric was one of those things that it was wonderful once I put it down. And to say I did not change where I put any of my vegetables this year than what I've done in the last 2 years. I put them in the exact same spot because I wanted to see if they would still produce with the weed fabric in those spots. Even though last year they didn't do well in those spots, I wanted to see if the weed fabric was a benefit for them. And it was. I really did well with my tomatoes. I had 6 or 7 tomato plants in my garden, and I had so many tomatoes, it was not funny. I mean, I was pulling, when I would go pick tomatoes, I would get 3 or 4 8-quart baskets of tomatoes every couple of days when I would pick. I mean, I made things this year that I had never thought I would make. I mean, I made barbecue sauce, I made chili sauce, I did tomato paste, and of course I did tomato sauce and pizza sauce, stuff like that that takes a lot of tomatoes, that if you're buying them, you don't have the time to, it's a lot of tomatoes to buy to make that stuff, when sometimes it's more beneficial for you just to go to the store and get it, because the number of tomatoes it costs to do, it's not cost effective to make your own barbecue sauce, your own chili sauce, pizza sauce. But I had the tomatoes, so I thought I'm going to try it and see. Now, if we made sauce and that we absolutely love, I have the recipes. I can make it again if I know that's something that we like. But this is something that we will be tasting through the year. It's nice to have the tomato paste so that I don't have to buy that at the store, and I'm able to just go and get tomato paste downstairs when I'm doing my tomato sauce in any tomato-based product that I do. It's nice to just go downstairs and have the paste and be able to add it to flavoring into all of my dishes. So with the tomatoes doing wonderful, the other thing that did really well for me was my cucumbers. I put them in the one spot where they get morning sun, and then after 12 o'clock they start getting shaded, because cucumbers are one of those things, they like sun, but the leaves can get burnt out really, really fast. So I end up putting them on along the fence there where they can get this afternoon shade, and they usually do okay. But this year they did wonderful. I had so many cucumbers. They were climbing the fence. They were going around the corner of the fence. They were everywhere. And they were running through my garden. They were wound through my tomato plants and everything. And I would see flowers. And then 2 days later I'd come out and I was like, oh, okay, it didn't produce into a cucumber. And then 3 days after that, I would see this huge cucumber that I missed 2 days ago when I was looking, because the leaves were so big and so green that they were hiding the cucumbers. So I had a lot of cucumbers, and my neighbors got a lot of cucumbers this year because I just kept having so many of them. And I mean, I made relish and I did a couple other things with the cucumbers, but it was just, there was a lot of cucumbers. And I didn't need a lot of relish. I mean, I needed some relish, but I mean, I plant so many cucumbers every year, and the last few years, I was lucky to get enough cucumbers just to eat for us. So, you know, I just didn't want to waste the cucumbers, so I was giving them away to people and being able to do that. The other thing that I ended up doing was I put stuff in pots. And I put my carrots in pots, my beets in pots, and onions in pots. The carrots did quite well in the pot. I didn't need a lot of carrots, so there wasn't a lot of carrots there, but there was quite a few carrots. I mean, I got probably 2-gallon Ziploc bags full of carrots out of that bucket that I had my carrots in. My beets didn't do well in radishes. My beets and radishes really didn't do all that well in the pot. They do pretty good in the ground. So those are something that I will end up putting in the ground next year. Carrots did well in the pot. It helped me to keep the worms out of the carrots by having them in the pots instead of in the ground. So I'll probably do the carrots in the pot again next year, and I won't do my beets and my radishes in pots. I'll put them in the ground. The radishes are so quick. I was kind of hoping that I would actually get quite a few radishes and do that. And maybe my seeds were bad. I don't know. It's been a while since I've bought new seeds for my radishes. So maybe I'll just buy new seeds next year and try one in the pot and then some in the ground and see where I get. It's all a trial and error type thing when it comes to planting a garden and what works and what doesn't work. Because what works for me might never work for you guys. So it's just something that you have to try when it's time to do a garden. My onions actually did really well in the pots that I had them from with my potatoes the year before. I had these long bins that we got. They were selling them for $1 at the store because they didn't have a lid on them, and I didn't care that they didn't have a lid. I wanted them to be able to put potatoes in, and I did potatoes, and I got quite a few potatoes out of them, not this past year but the year before. So I put onion sets in those, and my onions got not huge, but they got about this big, which is okay. I mean, you normally don't even get them that big when I put them in the ground. So that's where I'm at. I mean, they were decent size for onion, and I ended up cutting them all up, and I can't remember what I did with them. I think I just cut them all up into pieces, and with my peppers, and I froze them into diced peppers and onions for just to have in the freezer when I do a stir fry or anything like that. I will have them to add into the breakfast casseroles and different things like that. That worked good the year before when I did that with all of my extra onions and peppers. And then my peppers did really well. I had 6 pepper plants. 2 of them were green peppers. 2 of them were supposed to be a yellow yummy pepper, and 2 of them were supposed to be red. Well, the two that were supposed to be red, only one of them was actually a red pepper. The other one, they never turned red. The peppers actually turned red. The two yellow peppers were supposed to be jumbo yellow peppers, is what they said on the sign. They were the little sweet peppers that you get in the grocery store, that they sell them in yellow, orange, and red in a bag. They were wonderful. Those peppers, I had so many of them. I would look at the branch. The branches were so heavy on one of my plants that anytime the wind blew, it would break the branch off. There were so many peppers on it. They were just prolific. I had so many of those little peppers, and they were so sweet. We were just eating them as, just eating them. The dog loves peppers, so she was actually eating when they get soft in the refrigerator. I was just feeding them to the dog, so I wasn't throwing the peppers away, because my dog actually really loves green peppers. Not green peppers, she loves red and yellow peppers and orange peppers. She doesn't like green peppers. So the yellow ones that were, if I didn't eat them fast enough and they got soft, I'd cut them up and give them to the dog as her treats instead of cookies. So she was getting some peppers too. She was getting her vitamins. But those did really well. And then my green peppers were actually, I had some really good green peppers, and I was getting quite a few of them a day too. And again, the neighbors were getting filled with peppers constantly, because I had so many, I couldn't keep up doing anything with them. I started cutting them into pieces and chopping them into pieces and freezing them with my onions. And I just couldn't keep up with peppers, and we were eating a lot of peppers. I made some salsa and stuff like that with all the peppers that I had. So I had a really good garden this year. I was surprised at the amount of stuff I got out of it. And then my green beans. Oh, my Lanta, my green beans did wonderful. They were along the side of the back of the fence, the place I put them every year. And this year they did wonderful. I mean, I was getting beans like crazy. And there again, the neighbors were getting beans. I was canning beans every other day. I mean, I probably have close to 200 pints of green beans that I canned. I did probably 50 of them or 60 of them this year, and then I had some from the years before. I mean, we just don't eat green beans enough. I mean, we have to eat green beans 3 times a week in order to go through all those green beans. So it's just, we've got extras of them, but we eat them. I mean, we eat a lot of green beans. That's one of our favorite vegetables that we have. And both my husband and I like them canned better than frozen, so I always can them. And we don't even really like them all that well fresh. We like them canned. And I guess that's probably weird. A lot of people are like, you have green beans and you don't even eat them fresh. I don't like the taste of them fresh. I'm not a big bean eater to begin with, but I like green beans, but I like them cooked. So we have them canned. And there was a couple of nights that I cut up the green beans and I just boiled them, and we just boiled them and we ate them that way. And they're fine that way. I mean, I like them that way too. But we just had a ton of green beans. My herbs that I put into pots did pretty well too. Cilantro is one of those herbs that it's never ready when you are ready to make salsa. It's either ready before your tomatoes and peppers are ready, or it's not ready when they're ready. So I had cilantro in 5 different buckets all over the garden, and I kept replanting, reseeding it, and finally I had some come when I actually had tomatoes and peppers and onions, and I could use my fresh cilantro without having to go to the store to get it and make salsa. So that was good that I finally figured that out of when to do it. But when it came ready in the pots, I would cut it and I would dry it, and then I would just have dried cilantro around, and I would use that until my fresh was available. Parsley was another one that kept coming back in my pots, doing really good. My oregano, I don't know how many cuttings off my oregano this year. But I don't need oregano. I mean, I have a ton of oregano and we use a lot of it, but those 2 plants that I have keep giving me more and more oregano, and it's a lot of oregano. And then my basil did really well. I had some in pots and some in the herb garden there next to my berries, and they did really well. The next thing that I had that did good, I ended up buying a couple of times. I ended up getting some raspberries. I planted them 4 times. The first 2 times they died, and I planted 4 plants and they died. The next time I got 2 big berries they had quite a bit of growth on them, and I got those and they took off. And then one of the ones that I planted earlier came up. So I have 3, or maybe 2 of them came up. I have 3 or 4 raspberry plants out there, which I'm glad, because we really like raspberries, and I like making jam with them and stuff. But I mean, I just didn't. They're expensive to buy, and I kept buying them, and they kept dying. My blackberry bushes overtook that little corner that I had. I have 2 of those with the seedless blackberries. Those are really good too. They took off, and I have to really tie them up. And my rhubarb did really well in the garden there. I was able to constantly be pulling rhubarb out of my rhubarb plant pot. I can't think of what I want to say. Out of my rhubarb patch. That's the word I'm looking for, patch. So, and it was really good. I mean, I was able to all year long keep pulling a couple more things of rhubarb up, and I had rhubarb. So that was a nice thing. And my strawberries for the first year, this was the first year that I had any amount of decent strawberries, and I got quite a few strawberries off that. I had a couple little chipmunks that were really liking those strawberries, so I had to put nets over the strawberries to try to keep them from eating them, because every time I turned around, I would have almost a red one, and then the next day it would be a big bite out of it. So I had to put a cover over the top of the strawberries so that I didn't have my little chipmunk getting into them, and the dog got hurt. So we don't have that little chipmunk anymore. My dog got him. So actually 3 of them he got. She was a good little dog this year. She got my chipmunks, but they were getting into my garden and they were eating my stuff. My watermelon really didn't do all that well in the pot. It only got to be about the size of a tennis ball, maybe a little bit bigger, and it never got any bigger than that. And the chipmunk kept eating. Every time I'd get one that was just about the size of a nickel, it would be gone, and the whole thing would be gone. It wasn't, they would just pull it off and they'd eat it. So that was one of those things. It might have done better if it was in the ground other than in the pot, but it was a test of things. Somebody gave me the seeds, and I figured I would plant them and see what I get. So overall, my garden did really well, and I will definitely be using that weed fabric again next year to put over the garden. They did tell me in all the things that I read and other videos that I watched about the weed fabric, they suggest that you pull it up at the end of the season and allow your ground to take in as much nutrients that it can over the winter. So I did. I pulled it all up, and I folded it up and I put it in my shed, and then I actually layered my whole garden, which I've done this for years, layered my whole garden with mulched leaves to allow that to work down into the garden and hopefully replenish the soil. There's a lot of leaves that have fallen off the neighbor's tree that I have full leaves in my garden at this point too. So I'll probably in the spring, I'll take the lawnmower in there and I'll just run over all of it and try to just mulch it even more so that I can just leave it down and put my weed fabric right over top of it. If I can get it mulched enough, thin enough that it will blend in and help. But we did grass and leaves in the garden, so we had that mixture that we put around everything over the whole garden to help it replenish the soil. And hopefully when I put the weed fabric down next year and plant, I'll have the same result that I did this year. It was a really good garden, and I'm really thrilled that I had such a good garden. So all said, if you're thinking about doing weed fabric in your garden to help control the weeds, I would highly suggest weed fabric. It is, and you have to get the contractor grade weed fabric. It's more almost like a plastic. I was really worried that it was not going to let the water go through and my vegetables were not going to grow. I had no issues with that. The water went through. Everything was really, it grew well. So, I mean, and you have to actually use a torch to cut through the plastic. It's that tight. It's that strong. But if you are looking to help control your weeds in your garden because you don't have the time or you don't want to take the time to weed 3 hours a night, which is what I didn't want to do. I didn't want to spend 3 hours a night in the garden weeding. There was other things I wanted to do and needed to do. But I wanted to have a garden. I wanted to enjoy the produce that is in my garden. So I would suggest weed fabric if it's something, if you're looking to help control the weeds in your garden. It worked great. I had really good luck with my weed fabric. Well, everybody, that is it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you learned something from the video. I mean, I know I did with the weed fabric, and it was just, it was a benefit for me this year to have that weed fabric. And I will actually put the link, actually I think I ordered it from our local Lowe's, but I will find where I got that and I'll put a link down below so that if you guys are looking to get it, you know, you'll be able to find it and order it. But yeah, I don't know as I could get it from like Amazon or any place like that. I think I actually got it from Lowes.com. But I will definitely make sure to check and put a link down below of actually where I got it so that if you guys are looking to get it, you might want to order it now in the wintertime. It might be cheaper if you can have the place to store it. It does come pretty wrapped up tight in a little box to be able to unroll. And it is reusable. It's not something that you have to buy each year. It is a little expensive, but if I can get 2 or 3 years out of it before I have to replace it, it's a benefit for me. I mean, my garden did wonderful this year. I've got a ton of food that I'm not going to have to buy. So the $75 or $100 or whatever it was that I paid for it was a good deal. I mean, I didn't, it was definitely, I saved that in produce that I would had to have bought at the farmers markets to be able to make the stuff that I wanted to make. So that was definitely a benefit. But yes, if you are looking to do weed fabric, that is, I highly suggest it. Well, that is it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have not subscribed to my video, please consider doing so. It does benefit me by you subscribing to my channel. And it doesn't cost you anything to subscribe. And that is the easiest way for you to support me, is by subscribing to my YouTube channel. Thank you for watching. And as always, I will see you on the next one. Have a good day. Bye.